Hi, I'm Sergio Davids and welcome to The Wheel Show. Today we'll be discussing the City of Cape Town's plan to implement dash cams throughout its law enforcement vehicles, as well as its roadblock unit. We'll also be talking about the Western Cape's plan to reintroduce the Drager breathalyzer unit. With us in studio we have JP Smith, Mayoral Committee of the City of Cape Town. Welcome, JP.
Hi, Sergio.
Tell us about the new dash cam units that will be implemented in the City of Cape Town's law enforcement vehicles.
I feel a little bit like a naughty child that's getting told he's getting Christmas in July. I'm getting two Christmas presents. I'm getting our new Epic IT modernization, which we've been working on for many years, which goes live in July, and I'm getting my dash cams. I've wanted them for many years. I went out on a operation on Jakes Gerwel Drive one night with all the drunk drivers screaming up and down there, and I was with a ghost squad, and I said to them afterwards, if there's one thing I can do for you within this term of office, what would you want me to do? And they said, dash cams. So there they are. Took me 3 or 4 years to get them, but we have our first dash cams going into our vehicles. We have a quota every year now that we'll have to do, and these will not just be recording the evidence of what the officer sees, both on motorcycles and vehicles, but also be fitted with automated number plate recognition. So they will interrogate the number plates they see around them, front and rear cameras, and then be testing that against e-NATIS for outstanding warrants, for stolen vehicles, for false number plates, duplicate number plates, suspicious vehicles, because they are in turn linked to the massive database from at our CCTV control room, which is linked to all the private CCTV cameras. We have this real groundbreaking agreement with all the private CCTV cameras. So all of that is now finally linked, and the dash cams plug into that.
Well, logistically, how many vehicles are we talking about?
Well, for just to equip the traffic department, we're talking 600, 700 vehicles. And I'll get a good chunk of traffic done this next year. And then every year we'll add a few. So I'll get a couple of hundred traffic vehicles fitted this year. I'm being particularly vague or specifically vague about it because I am worried about the back office stuff. The cameras in the vehicles, that's the easy part. You can stick a 3,000 Rand camera in a vehicle, you know, those you can buy off the shelf these days. The challenge is in getting all that data processed in a way that's easy for the officer to access. If your system relies on an officer to pull out a little memory chip or a little SD card, take it into the office at night when he's tired and after a rough day, or he's sitting overtime at the police station booking in a drunk driver, and then to go back and remember to download that data, systematize that data so you can find it in a year's time when you have to testify, your system is set for failure. So we've had to create a system that automatically downloads all the data at the end of the day, keeps the stuff for long term that needs to be kept, those that relate to incidents, and the rest of it then keeps on a 24-hour cycle. And all that has to happen on an automated basis that makes no effort for the official. And when he wants that footage a year later, he needs to be able to punch in the notice number of that fine, that drunk driving case, and it needs to spit up that piece of video that he can download onto a flash drive and show the court, so that I don't have to spend, as I did 2 weeks ago in Athlone with MEC Donald Grant, 2 hours in the courtroom being interrogated by a lawyer for a drag racer on Jan Smuts Drive, who claims he wasn't drag racing, and we didn't try and pull him over, and calls all of us a liar. And this happens to my staff all the time, and that makes many cases collapse. So the dash cam will be the objective test of that, and that data has to be stored in a manner that it cannot be fiddled with or tampered with, and to get all that working starts ratcheting up the cost quite a bit.
Well, I'm glad you touched on a specific case, because how will these dash cams actually help law enforcement and in fact the public?
Well, massively. Aside from the fact that your officer now knows when he's driving around a vehicle with an outstanding warrant. It could be a warrant of arrest for murder, for rape, for something serious, which is attached to the driver of that vehicle. It could be a gang-related case, because the gangsters ratchet up all kinds of offences with their vehicles, and then we'll be able to deal with those as well. It could be a false number plate. It could be your stolen vehicle that's just been added to the system, which we catch on the other side of the city, leaving the city or whatever, where they haven't changed the number plate, or they've used a false number plate which has already been reported stolen, and we're looking out for that number plate. So it gives us, the officer, a lot of stuff. If your officer had to know by memory all these license plates, if you had to have a piece of paper with these are recent number plates, and the call center is scrolling through a couple of hundred officers and they're all scribbling extra number plates, there's no way the officer is going to be able to observe those license plates and know them. But a system that automatically scans the vehicles and does that helps a great deal to make the officers more efficient. And then, of course, there's the evidentiary purpose, the fact that when you get to court, you can show the judge the clip. The judge can hear you hailing the drunk driver or the drag racer or whoever, saying, please pull off the road, like the mayor of the one municipality that came for the jazz festival and then drove home on the wrong side of a major road and resisted arrest and then claimed none of it had happened. This way there is evidence of that, and the officer doesn't have to be called a liar in court.
Look, I realize the system is new for South Africa, but internationally it's been around for decades. Why the delay in implementing the system?
Yes, we're poor. We're barely able to do the most basics, and often the key modernizations we put off. You see how the political opposition in this city, everything I do is called a gadget or a gimmick. So you become resistant to deploying things like that. We're always just doing the basics. So you roll out another 100 traffic officers when you have budget, and you clog up the courts with more cases you can't win. And at some point you have to sit back and say, look, what is the best spend of budget that I have? Do I put out another 30 traffic officers on the road with this? Or do I make sure that the cases I am dealing with actually make it through court? Because if you're Johannesburg or you're Durban, you have a repayment rate, a fine repayment rate of somewhere between 6 or 8, if you're lucky, 18%. Now that's half or a third or a quarter of Cape Town's, or in one case, almost a tenth. The metros in this country are not getting good repayment rate and fines. Now, if you can't make people pay fines, then what changes the behavior of the offender? If you can offend, you get a fine, you ignore the fine, then what changes your behavior? Nice talking, that doesn't work. We've tried the education bit. It works on some people, but a very small percentage. So you have to fix those. So we're increasingly looking at systems that ensures that when people get a fine, they pay the fine. When we take them to court, there's consequences. I'd rather issue fewer notices and arrest fewer people, but make sure that everybody who's arrested and gets a notice is compelled to face the music on them. Otherwise, the criminal justice system becomes a mockery.